Welcome to another Human First AI Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague. You can find us at avenue9.com, where we help small businesses compete like big brands with the help of AI and a little human first marketing strategy. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, avenue9.com. My guest this week is Brittany Trafis, and she's from Saurian Digital. You can find her at Saurian Digital or on LinkedIn. And she does all things AEO. It's the AI answer advantage is what we're talking about this week, Brittany. And I feel like it's really early on the AEO stuff. We're starting to find some answers. SEO is old and everybody wants to know how to get picked by ChatGPT, but it feels to me like certainly small businesses don't really know how that works yet. What's your take on where's the state of AEO, GEO, SEO as we talk about?
All the O's, right? It's so new that we haven't even aligned as an industry on what we're going to call it. Like you hear AEO, AI search, GEO, AIO. I think the latest one I heard was like LLMAO. And it's
people
let's
are
just
doing
talk about it.
We're not all McDonald's. Let's wrap it up. We can
Let's wrap it up. Let's just agree. But in terms of AEO or AI search, it's simple. It's where people are using AI platforms to ask questions and have conversations and be found there. And what's been so great about it, because it's the Wild West right now. Who knows? There's probably a new learning in this 30 minutes that we're having a conversation. But that's what makes it so fun.
Just released while you were saying that. We'll go.
Exactly. Just change the algorithm on how it's selecting content. Like it's moving that fast.
So I think that brings us to a couple of things. I've found that it's a weird evolution because in some ways it's taking us backwards to like the old days of SEO when it first started, where it's like you can shove some keywords in there, you can make some content and actually show up, which I feel like the LLM's text file is that way. You can tell AI what to say about you if somebody puts in your website or it searches your website to find out specifically about you. Which is wild because Google doesn't even allow that anymore. They're like, no, we're not taking your word for it. They stopped that decades ago. But on the other hand, we have these like new evolutions where it like duplicate content used to get punished and now it's an advantage because we're learning from large language sets and stuff. So it is a weird kind of swirling effect that I see in the world of optimization. How about you? What's working and what's not working for you? Or what do you find most interesting?
It really is like we went back in time, but we went back in time with all this different technology. So because you need, like you were just saying, like it's almost like, it is like Back to the Future. It's like old SEO because keywords now matter, alt text matters, those title and meta descriptions that you ignored for years, they matter now. Like all these things that we learned back at the origin of SEO are now just as important for AEO, but it's also evolved from there because now we're talking about things like schemas and the content. Like the content we've for so many years have been like, don't cannibalize, don't mess with those keywords and let's stick with that cluster. And now it's no, the more content. Now, not just create content to create content, right? It's about creating content that's still valuable and trustworthy and has the authority because they are using those algorithms. But it is really about, can you show that you have the authority, that you have the content, but you also have to have the technical. If you have content and no technical, you're not showing up. If you have technical and no content, you're not showing up. And so it really has become this like magic formula of the last 25 years starting to come together to make this new channel of AI search.
And I suppose we started the conversation assuming that everybody knows how important this is, but the number of AI searches will outnumber the Google searches this year, if not already. Right. I haven't seen the latest numbers, but
by like end of Q2, I think is when they're expecting it to surpass it.
Yeah. So that's a massive shift in just how all humans on the planet are looking for information on the internet. That's crazy. And I think in some ways it's shuffled the deck too, where like big brands dominated search and they have money to pay for pay-per-click ads, but also a little niche carved out for local businesses. If you're doing local searches, Google really helps out with local businesses, treating it as a whole separate algorithm. And now AI seems to have shuffled that deck too. And that maybe like
Mm.
big businesses have the advantage again, but they also can't move as fast or update things. And so I feel like the advantage is in the small and mid-market businesses. But what are you seeing on that side?
That's probably the one thing I love most about this new channel being born is it put us all at the same starting line. Like it you were up here, like you were saying, you could buy your way in, you could throw all the money and get your SEO keywords and pay per click. And like if you were a small brand, you had no chance of competing against these guys on the Google page. And now it went like this. And we're actually seeing the small guys are beating the big guys because they can move faster. They don't have to go through all the red tape and like combing through all these cobwebs of their website. And now, if they can put together a sound strategy and an AI search, getting their tech up and running on their website, they can start showing up. And what I like about it is it's just opened up your competitor set where you thought you were going against these three guys. And it's, oh no, now you have these new 10 or whoever that are starting to show up.
Yeah, I find the comparison content to be really interesting. So I feel like we're moving fast. We might have to circle back to some of these topics, but you just triggered another thought in me, which is that the stuff people are typing into AI is significantly different than
Yeah.
like restaurant near me. It's they're much longer searches, they're much more comparative, they're much more intelligent questions because you can ask that with AI. With Google, you're going to get links anyway. It doesn't, you don't really, it, it wouldn't make sense to ask it its preference on something, right? But now you
Right.
can say, okay, I prefer Italian restaurants with dark lighting in a 10-mile radius. And AI can actually filter and have an
Mhm.
intelligent recommendation rather than just like using the word Italian restaurant and popping up all of them. It's I think a change in the way people are searching too, not just what platform they're using.
That's like the behavior of consumers has completely changed. And it's interesting though, because if you think, like we were just talking about, like the old days of SEO, we had to teach people how to search in Google. And so they would just put random things and then people started to learn, oh, if I say this, I get better results. Like we learn very quickly as humans, right? I want this is how I get it.
Yeah.
And then we started to evolve from like the original search queries to I can just say Italian restaurant and it knows I want near me. Like I don't even have to say these things anymore.
Yeah.
And now we're getting to the point where ChatGPT and Claude and all these LLMs have taught us to have a conversation. And so now, oh, I can tell you everything I want and what I'm thinking and comparing. And then you're going to give me my result back right away. Why wouldn't I do that? That's a no brainer. And now people are trying to do that even within Google. Like we see, like
Yeah.
your long tail searches are just getting longer and longer in Google. And I think that's one of the biggest indicators of consumer behavior really changing towards searching within these AI platforms because you see it happening in Google. And it's why can't I just do this across both? I want to tell you what I want, and then you're going to give me a custom comparison or
Yeah.
introduce me to some new companies. Like I know I've personally have found so many new companies that I've bought from where I'm like, I didn't even know you existed. But Perplexity told me that you were best for me. Okay.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think you can be, like you said, multi-factored in your search where that didn't work before in
Mm,
Goop. But now you could say, okay, I want this and this, but also consider that like my partner likes this, find out one that we would like together. And it can actually do comparisons like that. And
mhm.
I found it really fun, especially I mentioned before we hit record that I'm moving and we're buying new furniture and stuff. And it's okay. I need this color scheme and we like this style, but also like it needs to fit within this room dimension. And all of a sudden that can all be part of the query, which is crazy. And then getting good results, getting good recommendations with images and stuff. Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for, and I can go buy it right away is I think an underestimated advancement in search that people haven't noticed yet.
Isn't it so interesting to look at it through the lens as a marketer and a consumer, though? Because the marketer in you wants to analyze, like, oh, here's the queries that I'm searching and things that I'm doing. But as a consumer, like, I just want the furniture to fit this color and be in this box. Like, it's just such an interesting time to be able to watch this evolve and really
Yeah,
go.
that's where I was going to go next, is that for a long time, there were more unique searches on Google than repeat searches. And
Mhm.
they did a lot of stuff to sort that down. If every search is a brand new search for Google, it doesn't have an algorithm. It can't index answers or sort things. So they started putting those recommended drop downs and like shortcuts. So like people, if you start typing in how old is, it's going to guess Tom Cruise, whatever, whoever you're looking for, to filter that down into categories for them and make searching easier
Mhm.
for people. But now AI has opened that up again, where obviously, like what we've been talking about, every search is a first time brand new search, because nobody in the world has ever used that exact same set of words before. It really becomes an interesting problem if every search is unique and every answer that AI delivers is unique. What we're talking about is really like probability and percentages, not like clear rankings like we had before. And that's another really big unique difference.
Yeah. I would add to that too, just to add on to what you're just saying around, it's also so hyper personalized. So if you and I were to take that exact same prompt right this second, we're not getting the same answer because it knows what Brittany wants and it knows what Mike wants. And so it's going to give us different responses. Where Google, if we were to do the same exact search, we're likely to get around the same page one. Maybe they're one and two are switched, but we'd still get very similar.
Yeah. So how do you handle that, or how should like businesses and marketers think about this? Because it really is, I think, a different ball game. You mentioned like we want to put things in category and be like, we rank number one for wheels, and that just doesn't exist anymore. How do we think about it? Do personas even still work, or is it just share of model, probability that we come up? What are you seeing? How do you recommend we think about this?
Yeah, it is ever evolving. So, like, from even a metrics, like if we start metrics at the highest level, we're now talking about presence and citation. So, we're talking about just from a monitoring perspective, because the LLMs don't give you the data back. So, you have to be doing your own monitoring. So, starting there and looking at it and understanding, do I even have a search presence for these 20 prompts that I'm monitoring? Maybe I'm 50%, maybe I'm 10%, maybe I'm zero, and really understanding there first. And then citations being they included a link to my site. That's the gold now. That's considered like your number one. Can I show up and can they include my link? But before you can even get there, what I always encourage like small and mid-sized companies to think about first is, what narrative do you want for AI? Because
Mm.
you can really determine that now. And I think that's just where like AI is just, it's changing how buyers decide. We just talked about our own like examples of how we've gone through that as a buyer. But as businesses, you can start to shape that. What do you want them to know? What do you want to start ranking for? And so if you look at your site, if you have ChatGPT or tools go and look at your site and they say, oh, you want to show up for orange chairs and clear tables, and you're like, no, I don't. I want to show up for brown couches and brown rugs. Then you have to start changing your content. You need to start changing the narrative of how it's reading you and what you understand. So it really does come back to at the very beginning of, what's the narrative? What's the category? What's almost like going back to business 101? What do you want to show up for and be known for?
Yeah, I that's exactly what I help people with at Avenue 9, by the way, is like figuring out your story and then the like scalable system to create content around that. And then the strategy of like how we're reaching the audience that we want.
Hmm.
And those three things, I think the way I think about it is that it's more like treating humans how to recommend you. If you had a friend or a brother in law and you're like, hey, I want to teach my brother in law how to talk about my business, I would have to repeat and remind him and give him a story that he could anchor on and really be clear about the website or the number I want him to give out to people, and ways to think about that so that they could remember it and refer you to the right people if they ran into them out in the wild. And to me, it's really cool that AI has finally gotten us there, where it's not a search algorithm, it's not a machine artificial ranking anymore. We can really train these AI models to trust us just like we would a human. And then we can do both at
Mhm.
the same time. So all that content we're creating, we can also use to send to our brother-in-law the same story, but also make sure we get it in AI and be more authentic and consistent with our business, which is cool.
Yeah, I love that analogy. That's exactly it. It's you have to tell it and tell it again and tell it again. And that's where the old of cannibalization doesn't exist. It's tell it as many times in different ways that you can so it understands you.
All right, I want to take a quick sidebar because I saw that I left my corporate job of 9 years to bust out on my own about a year and a half ago. And it seems like you did the same thing. What about this space or this opportunity made you feel like it's the right time to become a small business yourself and found Dorian Digital?
You went on the fun adventure too.
Yeah.
So the big thing was AI was like a tidal wave and it was coming in and I could see it and it was just so clear the disruption it was going to bring to not just marketing but to consumer behavior to all of these channels. And then even in the agency space, I'm like this is going to disrupt it. And it's ripe for disruption. Like we've been looking at these models for so like we just take the agency model,
Yeah.
repeat for 150 years. And the model was just ripe to use AI to disrupt it. And yeah, took a step out and we're a year and a half in and it's been a wild adventure, but really just starting to think about everything so different from what's always been has been probably the best experience of my life because you're constantly going, should it be?
Yeah.
And often the answer is no, I think it could change.
I've seen a lot of that too. I'd love to hear maybe one or two things that were big for you. For me, I think a lot of the stuff we've been talking about leveling the playing field is interesting. Like it's a time where we can jump in early and, like you said, ride this wave. And I still think it's early. We don't quite know how it's going to shake out. And those rules and tools and stuff that agencies have leveraged haven't been built yet for this new frontier. And so I think there's a big kind of first mover advantage, but we have to survive through that dip of all the disruption and stuff first, which I think is fun, but it also means that like what I'm building for myself is what can help other small businesses. And so as I create Avenue 9 and I'm trying to build my reputation and get my rankings up there, that's the same thing I would do for my clients. What about you? What are the top two or three things that you've learned in the last year?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing I've learned is don't just settle because things are moving so quickly. So there's something that I built a week ago that I already had to update this week. And that's been the biggest aha in learning, not just as a startup, but in this new AI world, is it's not just create one playbook and it's done. It's going to continue to evolve as the technology and models change. So it's exhausting and it's exhilarating at the same exact time
I was going to ask you
because
about the exhausting part because we've seen recent studies from Harvard show that like high performers are burning out because you can't get ahead. That wave is so big,
yeah,
it's a tsunami. It's like we can't. There's no way any one person could know everything there is to know about marketing or AI at this point, let alone both. So I feel like it's got to be a team sport, and you also kind of have to decide when enough is enough for you. Because so have you put any plans in place for that or seen that happening in your world?
the exhaustion I felt because, like you said, there's just so much to keep up with. And I actually I hit a point like beginning of the year was like, I just have to recognize I can't keep up with all these updates. And I created an agent that gives me my key updates that I needed to know. And I just trust that agent is giving me those key updates. But just even from keeping the business moving and growing and being ahead, like you mentioned, like you're doing for yourself what you're doing for clients, and I'm in the same exact boat. And so it really is okay. I tell my clients to prioritize. I guess I need to prioritize too. Like I can't be doing it all to stay up with everything that's happening, especially from the technology perspective. There's some things where anytime there was a model update, we would rush to adjust to those model updates. Now we evaluate the model. Was it a big enough change? Is it actually going to impact anything with our technology? No? Okay. we'll keep it in this sprint. We don't need to rush and adjust for it.
Yeah, I think that's smart. And I've talked about that too with a few different layers. It's crazy. If you're a Fortune 500 company, you got to spend like billions and you got to try and run and win this race, which is crazy to me, the amount of money
Yep.
and time and resources that they're doing that. Small micro businesses, I think you can wait and see how it shuffles out and just say, hey, Google caught up really fast. They had Gemini into search and now all the tools, and Microsoft is it as well. And so you can kind of wait to see who the winners are and just use
Mhm.
things with the mainstream. But I do think there is a interesting kind of mid-market, large small business area where you can be strategic about what you pay attention to, look for those big updates, look for advantages and ways to maybe get ahead of the competition, but not make massive investments in it.
Mhm.
Really smart strategic decisions about where you go and where you play. And so I'd love to ask you a question about that, of like, where do you see those advantages? Because sometimes people are talking about, oh, Perplexity is the best search, but then you look at the number of searches on Perplexity versus still on Google's AI overviews. It's a massive difference. So you're like, maybe I don't
Right.
dump all my money into Perplexity. That's like going all in on Vine 10 years ago or whatever. How
Yeah.
do you think about that?
I think similar around that. I always use the analogy of like when search engines first came out, there's ton of them. And then they
Yeah.
slowly went under, and then you had Yahoo and Google and Bing, and even Yahoo, that's gone down. And
Yeah.
so that's something that's what's happening right now is we don't know who's going to win the model game. We don't know. If you asked me a month ago, I would have given you a different answer than I give you now. Or in 6 months, I'd probably give you a different answer. And so, really, just thinking about it strategically, because as a business owner, you don't want to, or marketer, you don't want to rush in and be like, this is it, I'm all in. And then an update happens, and 30 days later, you're just trying to unwind, but you're so far in. And so, really, like having, hey, these are the key pillars that we think we need, like we see the future with, right? I always advise, not just because of my company, but like AEO, AI search, like consumer behavior is showing the direction there, right? Like you should start thinking about what your content and website strategy is to be showing up in AI search. The other is, how do you start getting your employees trained on it? How are you helping them adapt to using AI? Those are things that are just going to continue to evolve. And there's a few other pieces. But as you can focus on those from a strategic perspective, you can then have a test and learn area where you're like, run? Nope, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Run? Yeah, that worked, because it's so new. But you also could lose if you don't start to take some of those steps, because there are the early movers, and they're the ones that at the end will either be standing, not standing, but you don't want to be there and be like, oh, I thought AI wasn't real and now it's 2030 and I have a completely different thing that I need to start learning.
Yeah, you set me up there for a great transition, because my next question for you is like, how do you think this will play out in 2030 or beyond, at least for AEO and marketing? But I wanted to chime in there that I think you can start working on the foundational stuff that we talked about. And that's where I'm focusing
Mhm.
with Avenue 9 is get your story, get your marketing clear, start building trust, and things that are white hat and straightforward and trustworthy
Yep.
don't change that often. If you're getting good reviews from your clients, if you're capturing great conversations and testimonials and good data, and you're making great content, that's always going to be valuable. And then let the tools, the tech, and the algorithms shake out and keep focusing on building your foundation. But where do you see, if you had to make, we're going to put on the tinfoil hat in a second too, but if you had to make a prediction of who wins or what search looks like in 2030 and beyond, what would you say?
Oh, such a great question. So, specifically for search, I'm right now, so April of 2026, I really think it's going to come down to Claude and Gemini. I think they've made huge strides. ChatGPT, OpenAI was such a winner for so long. They're the ones that introduced it to us and brought it to the industry. I just see the quality and how Gemini is getting involved into Google. It's part of, they have our data there. It's part of our behavior. We use the Google workspace, we use Gmail, like it's there. So I see them. And then Claude's just made such strides of trying to be like, hey, we are like authentic, we're safe, use us. So right now, I'd say those are going to be the two winners. I think everyone else will shake out and maybe evolve into something else. But in terms of people searching, those are the two I'm placing my bet on right now for
I
2030.
seem to agree with you. I see it like the Apple versus Microsoft versus Google thing. And
Yeah.
Google wins with Android and open source and Chrome. And Apple won by having a tight, small environment that's secure and controlled and safety. And I think there's some space for somebody like that. What I don't think is ChatGPT going for the like ads model and the take everybody's money. And it feels very like Yahoo-ish to me, where it
Yes.
started out strong and had a lot of buzz, but then they got too complicated and too messy, and people that were like clean and simple and already in the workflow really worked better.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And it'll be great it's going to be fun to watch and see. Who
I
knows
see
what
a lot
happens
kind
this
of like
month?
Microsoft was of like being the backbone of a lot of this. If they get really good at coding and really good at delivery and being the most reliable, that could be a cool spot that maybe not
Mhm.
everybody uses Claude or knows that it's Claude, but they're the ones handling the background on all this stuff.
Especially because they're safe, like how sound they are on safety and privacy. I think that's what's really going to take them far and could evolve like what the standards are for the industry too, as long as they keep with that and don't sway from what their
I
business
see them
model
sticking
is.
with it. It seems like the founders and
Mhm.
leadership really want that. I don't trust
Yeah.
Altman and OpenAI to stick with it. It looks like they're going to go whichever way has the most amount of money
Where the
or
money is, that's where they're going. Yeah, I agree.
and then one last fun one for you. If you had to go like 30 years out within our
Oh
lifetimes,
my gosh.
what sci-fi movie do you think we end up in? What does life look like?
Oh, I'm so bad at movie titles, so I don't even know what movie it would be. But I see 2030 looking a lot like how if you were to look at like 1975 to 2026.
Hmm.
So like they didn't have cell phones in their hands. They didn't have a laptop that they were sitting there talking to. They weren't talking to their car. Their cars weren't driving themselves. And in 1975, you would have been like, that's wild. That's Jetsons. That's crazy. I don't even know if the Jetsons was out then. But in 30 years from now, I really see that we've become a lot more comfortable with autonomous vehicles,
Yeah.
like starting to bring humanoids. Like, I think humanoids will become very normal to us, whether they are servers, whether they're in our house doing like chores. Like, I think humanoids just become like a cell phone in our hand and we become so used to it that we look at it and go, how do we live without it? And it's not like the world's destroyed or there's like Terminator or something going around. I think we just really evolve with it. And all of a sudden, we're just running with technology like we are now.
Yeah, somewhere Star Wars without the aliens, like where the
Yeah.
androids and R2D2 or C3PO are around helping you, and it's normal to interact with them or talk to them and stuff. I also think Minority Report was really close too, that it turns out like these prediction engines can predict crime on a street corner to like everything that we
Yeah.
need. And it turns out we don't need like super precognition to do that. We just have the massive amount of data and surveillance now, and then the ads popping up because they scanned your face or whatever feels like that's
Right.
definitely going to happen in the self-driving cars that way of Minority Report. That's fun. Thanks
Yeah.
for the great conversation. This was cool. And again, we've been talking with Brittany Trafis of Sorion Digital. You can find her at soriondigital.com. Brittany, how can you help us or how can we help you?
Yeah, thank you so much for the conversation today. This was so fun to deep dive with you. I would just say that if you're a small, mid-sized business really looking to meet where consumers are searching and showing up in these AI search engines, visit us at soriondigital.com and we are here to help you show up in those answers and start putting together that strategy that we were just talking about.
That's awesome. And for Avenue 9, if you want to figure out the story, the strategy, and the technical tools, the systems to make it happen, reach out to me. We focus on the conversations, the content, the connections that get you more clients. And so if that sounds like where you want to start, go to avenue9.com. Until next time, keep going. Have a good one, everybody.